The conditional mood in Italian expresses actions that happen under a condition, whether it's real or imaginary. It's called a conditional because the action depends on something else, and in English, we often use would, could, or should to express conditionals. In Italian, however, two conditionals are similar to English. The present conditional, which is the equivalent of would do, and the past conditional, translating to would have done. In this video, we'll see the two types of Italian conditionals, along with if clauses, because they're a crucial part of the mood. Let's begin with the condizionale presente, which is the English equivalent of would plus a verb. To conjugate verbs in this mood, we have to understand the formation, which is built from future verb stems plus conditional endings. While English has an auxiliary verb would, Italian uses future verb stems with conditional endings that we need to learn. I already made a video about the simple future in Italian, so I highly recommend watching it before continuing with this lesson, but we can recap the concept here. For regular ere and ire verbs, drop the final vowel and get the stem. Regular are verbs will also drop the final vowel, but will change a to e. These are regular stems from the simple future tense, but there are many irregular stems, which again I showed in the future tense video. After learning how to make stems, we can see conditional endings for the present conditional. Ei, esti, ebbe, emmo, este, ebbero. These are the endings we need to conjugate verbs in the condizionale presente, along with verb stems. Let's see the verb parlare, to speak. To conjugate parlare in this mood, we take its future stem, change a to e, and add the conditional endings. Parlerei, parleresti, parlerebbe, parleremmo, parlereste, parlerebbero. The meaning of the phrases is I would speak, you would speak, and so on. This is the formation of verbs in the condizionale presente, and the endings apply to all verbs, but the stems may be different. As a rule of thumb, it's best to know the most common irregular stems to practice usual speech, like andare, avere, essere, dovere, potere, sapere, vedere, vivere, volere, rimanere, tenere, venire. After learning this mood, we can see when to use it. In Italian, its main use is politeness, which is very common, like saying vorrei un caffè, potrebbe aiutarmi, dovresti studiare di più. On the other hand, the mood can be used for hypothetical situations that are made from an if clause. In this case, the imperfect subjunctive is involved, which I will show in a different video, but for this lesson, I will simply mention the pattern with an example. Later in the video, I will specify the idea more. In the present conditional, the pattern of an if clause has se, meaning if, the imperfect subjunctive, and the present conditional. An example can be se fossi ricco, viaggerei. Se avessi tempo, verrei. For now, do not worry about the subjunctive. Other uses of this mood are the future in the past, wishes, and desires, like saying ha detto che sarebbe venuto. Vorrei vivere in Italia. So, this is how the present conditional works in Italian. Now, we can see the condizionale passato, which is the English equivalent of would have plus a past participle. This mood is different from the present because it's mainly used for regret and the unreal past. In this case, we also have to work with past participles, which are affected by gender and number, depending on the auxiliary verb. Italian has two auxiliary verbs, avere, to have, and essere, to be, and we'll see their conjugations in this mood. However, this formation is compound, which I highly emphasized in many of the previous Italian videos. As always, you can watch them before finishing this lesson. The formation of the condizionale passato uses the conditional form of avere and essere. Avrei, avresti, avrebbe, avremo, avreste, avrebbero. Sarei, saresti, sarebbe, saremmo, sareste, sarebbero. These are the conjugations we need to make phrases in this mood, with past participles, which again are affected by gender and number when essere is the auxiliary. After learning the condizionale passato, we can see when to use it. The most common use is the unreal past that shows regret. In this case, the pattern also uses se with the imperfect subjunctive, but the result will use the past conditional. An example is se avessi studiato, avrei passato l'esame. If I had studied, I would have passed the exam. Aside from the unreal past, this conditional can also be used for missed obligation and a completed future in the past, like avresti dovuto chiamarmi. Ha detto che sarebbe arrivato tardi. So, this is how the past conditional works in Italian. After learning the system, it's best to practice with the most common sayings in the conditional. Such phrases are used a lot in Italian speech, but the main concept to comprehend is the distinction between the present and past hypothetical. Even so, this idea is logic-based because we connect the mood with time and a level of reality. As a result, the language has if clauses, which are important in the conditional. Before ending the lesson, I will show how the role of the mood is influenced by if clauses, without fully explaining the subjunctive yet, because that concept needs a different video. Every Italian if sentence has two parts: the condition, or the if part, and the result, showing what happens if that condition is met. As such, the conditional mood only appears in the result, so it depends on how real or unreal the situation is. Italian has three types of if clauses, and each one shows a different level of reality. 1 is real, 2 is possible but imaginary, and 3 is impossible. You can even see the English idea. Type 1 shows a real possibility that can happen, but it doesn't use any conditional conjugations. The pattern follows se plus the present, and the result can be in the future, present, or imperative. An example is se piove, resto a casa. This situation is realistic, so we don't use the conditional in this if clause. Type 2 shows the unreal present with possible but imaginary situations, and this is where the conditional comes in. The pattern follows se plus the imperfect subjunctive, and the result uses the present conditional. To make this concept easier, let's reuse some of the previous examples. Se fossi ricco, viaggerei. Se avessi tempo, verrei. Here, we know the condition is not true, so the result is not real, depending on an imaginary condition. Type 3 is about the unreal past and regret. This type is for things that cannot change, and its pattern follows se plus the imperfect subjunctive, with the result being in the past conditional. Once again, let's reuse an example. Se avessi studiato, avrei passato l'esame. Here, the role of the conditional shows the result as something that never happened. In conclusion, if all of these concepts are too difficult to understand, that's perfectly fine, because we can see the summary of the conditional's role in all types of if clauses. So they tell us that the result exists in imagination and not in reality. In this video, the topic could have felt hard because of real and unreal situations, but that's a thinking skill when learning complicated concepts. To better understand the Italian conditionals, always ask, is this situation real, possible, imaginary, or impossible? Once your brain starts categorizing situations, the grammar will be simple, and it means that your brain is building a new system of thinking. You don't need to be fast, but you do need to be aware. So, this is how the conditional mood and if clauses fully work in Italian.